Welcome to the Cincy Postcast presented by LASIK.com, where better vision equals better calls. I'm Kevin Wallace, and before we get started with today's episode, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Streetside Brewery. That's right, the best brewery in the city. No, in the city is sponsoring this episode and so many other episodes of the Cincy Postcast. We love Streetside Brewery. Look, if you've not checked them out, you got to. They not only have a super great location over in Columbia, Tusculum, they also sell their beer outside in the world, grocery stores and liquor stores. And whenever I see their, I will say, beautifully designed cans on the shelves, I know I am in for a really, really, really good beer. Okay, so go see if you can find one out in the wild. All right, they sell some delicious beers. Now, if you're not going to drink one at home, again, cannot recommend their location enough. It is a beautiful place to watch away matches for FC Cincinnati, which there's a handful in June because there is not a home game in June for FC Cincinnati. So if you're looking for a place to catch those away matches, well, Streetside Brewery is the place to be. So go check them out. Like I said, over in the Columbia Tusculum neighborhood. If you've not checked them out, you owe it to yourself. If you had checked them out, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So again, huge thank you to Streetside for sponsoring this episode of the Postcast. And on today's episode, well, there's not a lot of FC Cincinnati news. I'm not gonna lie to you. Okay, there's not a whole lot of FC Cincinnati news, which means this episode goes in many different directions. But there is eventually a couple of things that we touch on. One is there's a new looming travel ban that could impact not just FC Cincinnati players and coaches, but obviously our broader soccer community and world at large. So we do discuss that. We also discuss a very unfounded rumor that Evander is being looked at by Galatasaray. Look, don't put any stock into it, but it allowed us a great opportunity to just sort of talk in hypotheticals about what it would look like to sell Evander this window. Would that make sense? Is there a dollar amount that would make it make sense? What? I don't know. We needed something. I'm telling you, we needed something to talk about here. In part two, though, a day late and a dollar short, we get the May Patreon questions done. Okay, if you asked a question in May, we got it done for you. It is a wide-ranging number of topics. Okay, you're gonna have a blast with this one. Put it all together. You got yourselves a very Thursday episode of the Postcast. And joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by
there
two
can't
gentlemen.
possibly be more. I know you haven't written the cold open right now. I know that's the last thing you do because I know this was when I do the podcast solo. That's the last thing I do. Yep. There's no and more this week.
Yeah, that is true. I don't know what I'm going to put in the intro.
What's the and more? Like, great. Like my Nintendo shows up tomorrow. Cool.
Chief, you are burying the story of the week in FCC world, though. Away Days is finally out, baby.
Oh, not gonna pat myself on the back too much for being only about 12 months late on this.
No way. It makes the people think it doesn't exist, and then it exists. It's like finally getting the Red Bull Arena tunnel tape.
Yep.
Yeah. How great would that have been if we would have had that to include in the video, though?
God!
I'll be honest, I kind of wanted more of the D&D show.
The
we didn't have it. We didn't take as much video as we didn't take as much video as we probably should have in there.
Well, you know what's funny is, and spoilers, I guess, for the video that'll have been out for a couple of days by the time you listen to this. In New York, we went to go see a D&D live show, which was very funny. It was
off Broadway.
Very off Broadway.
Pretty far off.
Fair enough. Look, to me, it had playbill equal Broadway. That's all I needed. All right. And there was a playbill, so that's all I needed. It was an audience participation improv show that was put on in partnership with D&D. But part of it was they were totally open with taking videos and photos. And they said that up front, like they wanted people to share as much as possible. But I think all of us still had the like, I'm in a theater instinct, and we're still a little, gun shy when it came to busting out the camera. I don't know. Something about that felt wrong still.
I mean, from Grayson's point of view, I think a lot of that felt wrong.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm like the energy of this show was off for me.
Yes.
Immediately. Immediately. It was like going to see like, I mean, it was improv.
Right, of course.
Okay. It was improv. That's not my.
Right. This is like Grayson.
That's not my thing.
This is like Grayson being promised that he was going to see like an evening with Bon Iver and instead going to a Weird Al Yankovic show.
well, I felt bad for our cameraman. I should say I felt bad. I felt bad for like a second.
I felt no bad. I felt zero.
I didn't feel bad at all. I think he wanted to see like Back to the Future or something. The fact of the matter is, yes, there weren't a lot of good options.
That is true. And a lot of them were one ticket was the price of what it cost the four of us to go to this one.
Yeah.
And also we had to actually go to the game. We couldn't have like.
Yes.
Right. We had to go to a matinee. We had to go to one that wasn't like 3 hours long.
Yes. There were a lot of parameters that forced us there. But what I did appreciate was like we were debating between a couple of them. One of them did include, and I will say, was Tommy, which is the Who's, rock opera, a classic. And then he went for a walk. Good old Andrew went for a walk, and he came back, and we had already bought the tickets, so he didn't even get a vote. And that's the part I was like a little bit, and I was like, "Fuck it, we have to do this."
He's the cameraman.
I feel like we couldn't get 4 tickets to Tommy.
Yeah,
or like we couldn't get 4 together. So there was something weird. There's something weird with the Tommy ticketing situation because, like, I mean, I would have loved to have seen. Tommy.
Yeah.
But, I think the problem is this was better content.
It was.
It objectively better content.
It aligned with the postcast lore, and we got to name the Hellspawn creature Amaya, which was great.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, maybe should have given the full Frankie Amaya as like the full name of the creature, but Amaya
just for the potential, there was one Red Bulls fan in the arena, which would not have been the case because, as we proved in the video, there are no Red Bulls fans in New York.
No. Well, and I'm going to assume the vast majority, if not every single person there, was not from New York. Like in that theater, what percentage?
The best part, I don't know if this made the video, but my favorite part of going in there was when your friend tried to give his ticket to a guy in chainmail.
Yes,
but the guy in chainmail was he was an attendee. He did not work there.
he did. He looked official, and he was standing in an official place.
And look, I never would have made that mistake because I'm always on the lookout for like audience participation, places people go and cosplay, stuff like that, because it's like I've been burned before. Like I've been in multiple situations where like I end up with like a aisle row seat and I think to myself,
oh no,
they're going to make me part of this thing.
Of course.
and then I end up part of this thing.
You're getting
pulled
up.
My head is on a swivel when we're going to these kinds of shows. So I like immediately clock like, oh, people are going to this thing dressed up. That's not a metric for who works here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was either It was either that or Scott Steiner was an attendee too. It's one or the other.
It's true, and would have been a dope look as well. We did end up in the very last row, which I appreciated our ability to sit as far away as possible. But of course, as we got towards the end of the show, the idea was to get input from the back row, and we were the only people in the back row. So of course they were coming to us.
No, we were where all the cool kids were at a Dungeons and Dragons show in the back of the room.
Look, and I know people are like, "Oh, you're being really judgmental about this thing." I'm being judgmental as to my experience.
Wait, have you met Grayson? He's judgmental about everything like this.
That's the point.
But I want to be clear here.
Yeah,
I'm being judgmental as to my experience. I am glad that these people were having fun putting this thing on.
Yes.
And that most of the audience enjoyed it.
Yes.
Like, I think it's great that everybody had a good time. It's just not how I would, in retrospect, have chosen to spend my afternoon.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm not a snob about any of this sort of stuff whatsoever.
I'm not a snob either. I just, I'm not going to pretend to like something.
I laughed.
Right. Here's the real question, gentlemen, while I have your undivided attention. So it only took a year to put this out. There had been some terrorist chatter earlier in the year that Away Days episode 3 would be filmed in Portland, Oregon. I am told now that there is a member of the trio here that will not be available to go to Portland, Oregon. Gentlemen,
I can't go to that. I have a family obligation. I'm sorry.
We are rapidly running out of away games.
I'm happy to pivot and find another game. But I don't. But I do think Portland's a good destination.
I think Portland's a good destination too. I'm going to throw it out there. We don't have to make a decision now. We can talk about it off the air. But a game that now has my curiosity in terms of, I think it would be amusing content, is July 19th at Real Salt Lake.
I was thinking that as well. I'm also looking at like the calendar, and Miami would be annoying.
Yes.
Orlando is too soon. I'll be honest with you. It's just not going to pull that off.
That's not going to happen. Yeah.
And then like, we're never on the road again until September 20th with the LA Galaxy.
I would say stay tuned. I'm not gonna write off RSL.
Okay. I mean,
maybe we all become Mormon for a weekend.
Dude, we gotta get some footage of the temple. They're not gonna let you in there.
No,
but they'll talk to you outside of it.
How far would it be to get to Park City?
It's like, well, Park City is like 45 minutes from the Salt Lake Airport.
What's that burger place that like you have to try?
I don't like that place. The No Name Saloon.
If we would have gotten Sundance, that would have been a lot funnier place to do content at. Will you be planning to visit Cincinnati, Ohio for Sundance?
So we do have to go to Park City if we go to RSL because my sushi place is there. And yeah.
Will you commit to doing an on-camera review of your sushi place?
Exactly what I wanted to say. No. Then we're going to the burger place. Then we're going to the burger place. That's how this works.
Yeah, I'll go to the burger place so I don't have to go on camera. I really like it out there. It's very nice. So yeah, maybe we'll pivot. I don't know.
Get some near beer. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can get beer up to 5% ABV on draft.
Whoa.
You can get cocktails with like, I think 1.5 ounces of liquor in them.
Do you get kicked out of the state if you order a double?
I think you have to order 2.
It's a hard. They have it's hard Shirley Temples you have to order there.
Right. And by hard, you mean it has like Coca-Cola in it because there's a little caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah. A little caffeine there. Just get you going.
Oh God. I love these moments in the schedule where there's not a whole lot going on. I'll be honest with you. I know it feels like a drag. I know as a soccer fan, I should want more soccer, but I've come to embrace the embrace the break.
I embrace the break. My only problem with the break is that we had a 7 match week month in May. The 3 match week month in June is just absurd by comparison. Like,
it's very silly, and none of them are at home.
It's very dumb. This is a dumb portion of the week right here, or the season right here.
Before we get into that, I do want to get a couple of things that I think we've mentioned hitting on before and never hit on. Did we ever talk about Rebel Moon Part 2?
We did not. It was unclear if we committed to doing Part 2, though.
I did watch Part 2. I did not have a good time.
So that's a yes. That's what we're doing on Sunday.
Yes, God, Chief. We have homework. We have to watch Rebel Moon Part 2.
Okay. So if you guys can watch Rebel Moon Part 2, we can skip that.
We can let the audience know. Watch Rebel Moon Part 2. We'll do the film room on Sunday. I will commit to watching Rebel Moon.
I don't want to spoil it, Grayson, but was it Anthony Hopkins was the robot? Is there any payoff to the robot? Okay.
Do you think there's going to be a payoff?
No, I don't.
I want there to be a payoff.
Damn it.
Anthony Hopkins voiced a robot. All right, continue.
And then I did watch Megalopolis.
Wow.
And I just want to read. I started to take notes during this movie, and I'm just going to read my notes that I took.
Perfect.
So my notes are Megalopolis, and then just a quote from the movie, or we will too fall victim like old Rome to the insatiable appetite for power of a few men. Sounds like that line had an effect on me in the moment. And then I write incredible opening shot, which is true.
Okay. Yeah.
Like Megalopolis was much like watching an FC Cincinnati game or certain FC Cincinnati games. Like you start it and you're like, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then the later parts is it's like, do they know we can see this?
Did they lose the final draft somewhere?
And then quote, it's a fable, unquote. Because I think the title card was like Megalopolis, a fable.
Yes.
And I wrote, that effing rules. Quote, I sing of Colossus, unquote. The poetry rules. Waitress on roller skates in the club, riding the unicorn. This is cinema.
Oh my God.
Shia is so good. Quote, feds to city, drop dead, unquote. Quote, design authority, unquote. And then I wrote, my last note is, and then Haim plays. I don't know if the band Haim is like in this movie or if it's just like a band that I saw this movie like, I don't know, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just like a band that I thought reminded me of Haim was playing. So
wow.
I do think that the opening of the movie, like the first like few sequences of the movie are incredible.
Okay.
It as much as I wanted to be a cheerleader of the movie,
right? The
movie made it hard. The longer it went on.
What is it about? What is the gist of like the plot? What am I watching?
Adam Driver is like an architect named Caesar, maybe.
Okay.
Who is trying to like build like the perfect city. And
Sim City, the movie.
He's in a relationship with the mayor's daughter. Okay. And the mayor is trying to like thwart him. And then his family is like a rich, powerful family. And they're also like trying to thwart him. And it's got a little bit
of thwarting.
It's got some like Randian elements to it where like he is like this like perfect genius, and these venal people are trying to prevent him from like creating a utopia.
Huh.
Shia LaBeouf plays his cousin, maybe
some sort of family member
who is some kind of feral person.
Oh,
yeah. The performances are inconsistent.
Yeah. Because wasn't this like filmed over the course of like 20 years or something like that?
It was filmed over a long period of time, and you can tell because it feels like it feels like it was written under like multiple different moments of inspiration.
Yeah.
I know one person that has seen it, and their review of it was, in this moment, you remember that Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas are really good friends.
It is, we see a lot these days, the praise for like, one person having sole vision, sole control over a creative product, a creative entity. And I do think that generates a lot of good ideas, as opposed to sort of like film or art by committee or by shareholder. But there is certainly a downside when the person you put all of the eggs in the one basket doesn't quite deliver what you were hoping.
Yes, I do think that there's a wide variance when you're relying on like a particular brilliant individual to come up with all the good ideas and like take you through. And it's better when it's like more of a coherent team.
Yes.
Maybe like 11 people collaborative process. And then where you have like, we all like work in like a system where we all like bring our own talents.
This is
and
fucking
we create
brilliant, by
success. And so FC Cincinnati.
No. You know what was great about that is that there were multiple points during there where I was getting ready to like chime in with oh, you mean like, and I was like, nope, he's going to take it there on his own. This is good. This is good. Let the man cook. Let the man cook.
I stepped all over it, but I just had to enjoy the brilliance while it was happening.
Now, you know our listeners, you got to spoon feed these people.
Yeah. Grayson with his little tricks.
Grayson with his little tricks. Yes, exactly. That was an audio nutmeg, I think. I think we can all agree on that.
Olay.
Well, okay, here. How's the transition? Speaking of one person's, moment of brilliance that is maybe relied on to the detriment of the larger vision. Evander is in the news, and I'm going to use news in the loosest way possible. Of one random unsourced Twitter rumor is suggesting that Turkish giants Galatasaray may be interested in his services. A keyword here is again. I am honest, I'm not familiar with previous pursuits by Galatasaray, but sure. It seems like a thing that might conceivably happen. I'll be honest with you. I'm talking about it because I want some content. Chief, what would it take to get to be acceptable? I'd say to the fan base. Ownership may have a different idea entirely. What would be acceptable to the fan base to sell Evander this summer?
So before we get started, we've got to acknowledge that
we've been started for 20 minutes.
I know.
Before we get started, that's the most podcast thing in the world.
That wasn't just us talking.
Yeah. I never have any idea how much this Kevin's
before we go further on this
like,
topic, how about that?
No. But before I figure out, it wouldn't surprise me if every bit of what we've just talked about has been cut out, and Kevin just goes right to the
recording. This is all.
Are we recording already? Oh, okay.
I just sat down. What are we doing here?
Galatasaray is like on the Mount Rushmore of I need a team that could plausibly buy a player that isn't too famous, right?
They have a lot of money. They have a huge fan base. Weirdly consistent underachievers in Europe. I get the impression that as much as the Conference League was made to appease the, 7th and 8th place finishers in England, it was also to give teams like Galatasaray a winnable trophy every year, and yet they still haven't quite been able to do that. So yeah, I certainly put them in a range of team that could easily poach an MLS DP.
Yeah. I'm not worried about this in the slightest. The amount of money they would have to offer FC Cincinnati to make the deal work, given that we know Portland has a sell-on provision for Evander, is absurd.
What is the sell-on? Do we know?
We don't know. We just know that they retained a sell-on portion. I'm guessing probably 10%, 10 to 15% in the space based on previous deals.
And so, it could be either profit, which I think is most common, or it could be gross.
Yeah.
But either way, you're talking about, in order to justify doing this, you're going to need to get an offer north of 19 million, 18 million minimum to get started. I would say probably over 20 to be realistic to consider.
So the question was, what would it take to be acceptable to the fan base?
Yeah.
Which I do think is, I think your point is interesting. So we can keep talking about that, because I do think that what makes sense to ownership is we just spent $12 million.
Yeah.
You're going to sell this guy, and Portland's going to take whatever their slice is. And then we have to find a replacement. Cause I think ownership, I am happy to say this, I think our ownership would want to know, what is your plan to replace him? Because we want to replace him this window.
Yeah.
Right. I think our ownership would be very motivated to find a replacement this window. So it's yeah, you can get a chunk of change coming in. Portland gets a share, but what's it going to cost to replace him?
Right.
Right.
I think that's a huge consideration on this. I also think ownership would ask a lot of questions in terms of instability, the message that it sends that players are going in and immediately going out.
Yeah.
So I think that there would be a lot of concerns from ownership on doing this, which, I think the only way that something like this happens is you have to have a big deal. We're talking 20 plus million, and it has to be something that Evander's camp is pushing for at the same time. You would need a combination of those two factors. From a fan base's point of view, no matter what you think about Evander's fit on this team or what his long-term prognostications are, I can't see any reason to want this as a fan. Because if you're bringing in a new designated player to replace, your best case scenario is that it's one in, one out, and you have somebody already lined up to come in for Evander to replace him. You're talking about integrating a new player at the most important position in the FC Cincinnati offense from probably a league outside of MLS. So now we're into Goss theorem territory, and you've got 11 matches to do that after the summer, during the summer window. There's no amount of money that should make this worth it to you as an FC Cincinnati fan, unless you're talking about bringing in a top level Premier League or Bundesliga talent to replace Evander with. And even then, you're admitting that you're probably punting on this year and that it's something that's not going to pay off or have tangible benefit until next year.
Yeah. We're in the total realm of hypothetical and speculation, but would a name like Kevin De Bruyne have been one of the few names you could say, all right, fine, we'll plug and play this and we'll throw all the proceeds at a proven Premier League winner?
Maybe.
Yeah,
probably
right.
not though.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure
De Bruyne is the kind of look, we should be so lucky.
Right, of course.
Have De Bruyne. But he's not a straight swap for Evander.
No.
The way he plays. And so you'd have to have an idea of how you want to use him. That it feels like an easy yes, and I guess it probably would be to sign De Bruyne, but in practice, I don't know if it makes us obviously better.
Right.
I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's an easy yes. I don't think it's an easy yes, because when you're talking about that level of player, I am always worried about what that level of player looks like being dumped onto an MLS roster where they don't have great talent around them. And
you throw them into a situation where there's ongoing chemistry problems.
Yeah.
In the team. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like De Bruyne is not going to like dribble 6 guys. Right? He's not going to do like the Lucho and just dribble the ball from midfield past the entire defense.
Yeah.
I think if we can't solve the chemistry issues with Evander, I'm not sure we can solve them with De Bruyne. And again, like, he's not been linked to us. We're not going to get him. He's going to Napoli.
He's the only name I could think of that might reasonably make this move make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking at Transfer Market today of just like, I did like a search of like attacking midfielders under 15 million euro in transfer value, just for whatever. And like, to be honest, like, a lot of names I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
Not a world soccer knower, I guess. A name that jumped out to me that was right at 15 million was Brendan Aronson. And there's not a doubt in my mind that if Albright thought he could bring in Brandon Aronson, he would kick Evander to the curb. But
Philly guy.
Right. Another name there was Gio Reyna is in that range, and he's available this summer.
Evander's so much better of a player than Gio. Yeah.
Right. Like, I'd have to do more research, but like, there weren't names that excited me.
Yeah.
In that range. Chief, you talked about like Evander's camp pushing for the move. Like, I'm if you can believe Capology, there are some players making like more than I expect Evander's making, but it's not like even the whole starting 11.
Right.
And he's not as big of a name as, like, I think they linked him to being a replacement for Dries Mertens. He's not as big a name as Dries Mertens.
Right.
So I don't think he would command a Dries Mertens salary. So I don't know that he's getting a massive salary bump. And so, like, if you would prefer not to sell him, you just give him a salary bump.
Yeah.
And I don't think like playing in Turkey is not like, oh, it's my childhood dream.
Right.
To play. So I feel like if you just met, if it came down to like his camp was like, well, they're offering me a raise, you could just meet the raise.
Would there be anything to, again, God, this is all based on like a terribly sourced rumor.
It's based on nothing.
Yeah. But would there be anything to Evander wanting to get himself into the national team picture?
I don't think Galatasaray gets you there. He's closer to being in the U.S. national team picture. He's got a green card.
Damn, that's a great point.
Like, he's got a green card, so
he's only 24.
He can get citizenship in a couple of years. He's probably closer to it than Lucho is.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So I think he's 26.
Oh, okay. There's
but
yeah.
What would you as a fan accept?
I would need it to be a Zelarayan type move where he's sold and the next day I get an almost like for like replacement that I could feel confident in. It can't be he's sold. Now we got, 2 months to figure out a replacement. It just can't be like that.
I think it would need to be something like 16 plus with an immediate replacement.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm concerned about
the long-term vision of the club. Yeah.
Like I need we made an obvious profit. We respent a portion of the money on as good of a player or a comparable player.
Yeah.
And it was good business in the moment, because something I keep my eye on is that I've heard rumblings for a long time when Albright talked to David Goss at the Generation Adidas tournament.
Yeah,
he even mentioned like, I don't know if we're going to be like spending like this all the time, but we blah, 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 blah. And I'm like,
ooh,
I really need these investments to pay off.
Yeah.
Because there are tea leaves, including like Albright's direct statements, that the team is not always going to be willing to spend this much money.
Yeah.
Right. So I need them to start making, I need them to one, make money or get close to it on like overall player transfer business. And two, I need, when they spend big money, that player to pay off.
Yes.
Because if that player doesn't pay off, knowing that the next time they're not going to spend that much money, I'm a little concerned about what we're going to end up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that so much. To me, that statement from Albright, I think it's more a reality of something that we all, I think, understand. And that's that the level of investment in this league and what it takes to have a window like we had, that's going up every year. And so this year we set the MLS transfer record with Kevin Denke, and then it was immediately broken by, known shithead Latte Loth. I think what Albright's referring to is that there probably is a time and a point where the money being thrown around in this league simply gets too big for FC Cincinnati to be a top 4 or a top 5 spender. And that's not a comment on ownership's willingness to spend. It's just a reality of the fact that we're not playing in LA, or we're not playing in New York, or we're not playing in Chicago. So I think that it's part of the reason why I'm sort of a big believer in the fierce urgency of now, because in this moment in MLS, FC Cincinnati can be one of the big fish in the pond. As we push them to relax salary rules and to open this league up more when it comes to spending, eventually economic realities are kind of undefeated. And there could be a time, and it could be approaching, where, we look more like the Cincinnati Reds than the LA Dodgers. And so I think that's what Albright is referring to, is that I think there is a cap at some point where FC Cincinnati says, we can't keep up with the Joneses. We can still get good players, but we're not going to be breaking the transfer record every year. So I don't think that there should be panic over that per se, but I do agree with your general idea that, like, look, Albright convinced ownership this past offseason to eat Aaron Bupenza's transfer fee and immediately go and be willing last year and then last winter to spend more money right on the back of Bupenza's transfer, because they thought the sales pitch to ownership was likely, you sign Aaron Bupenza, we're going to have him for 2 or 3 years, and you won't need to come back and buy another player for that time period. Well, they canceled his salary off the books, but they didn't get his transfer fee back. So yeah, I do think that there should be some concern about making sure that you're being seen as a good steward of the money that's being given to you.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Marrying a couple of those points. The other thing is this team is chock full of TAM level players, and I think that Albright and ownership would like those to be replaced with academy products, which would decrease team spend that way as well. And I think that is a version of decreasing team spend that even fans can get behind. But the other idea that did sort of pop into my mind, not unlike what we saw with the sale of Ian Murphy and Chidozie Awaziem, is there a world where you sell Evander and Luca Orishano and bring in 2 players that are maybe both not at Evander level spend, but now you would have 3 designated players, say a $10 million attacking player and a $6 million box-to-box midfielder, something like that might actually serve the team better in that regard.
Maybe. I think I just, like Chief was talking about, and like I was talking about, like I have like I have a worry, and it definitely has informed my reactions to like the team's form the first half of the year.
Yeah.
That like we're looking back at Eurydice, and if we don't like get to the sun as things stand,
yeah,
we're just gonna fall and fall and fall and fall. And like the there's not gonna be that investment moving forward. And we have gotten so close to so many trophies.
Yeah.
And like I just need one before I'm like, and like I know we got the shield.
Yeah.
But I just need a cup before I'm like comfortable, like we're on solid ground.
Yeah, like letting go of this moment, basically, that we have maximized, or not maximized, but performed well in the window that we were given.
I'll say this to sort of put a bow on it, though. I think that I'm firmly of the mind that you can't move a player this quickly unless you're blown away with the offer, regardless of if it's a profit.
Yeah,
like just from the standpoint of projecting stability in the organization and stability to ownership, you need the deal you present to ownership has to be, this deal is so good, in good conscience, I have to run it by you before I tell them to go pound salt.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Like it would be, I think, malpractice to not have a dollar amount on every player. And even, Kevin Denke, I'm sure his form has caught other teams' eyes in Europe in particular, where he has proven to be an excellent piece. It would, like I said, it'd be malpractice if FCC did not have a dollar value in mind when it came to him. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's one last piece of news I want to touch on. This is not quite happy, fun news, but it's worth bringing up because it could potentially serve as an issue in the very near term. There does appear to be a new travel ban being implemented soon. I will not speak to the legality of such travel bans. I'm not familiar with how these things work, but it does feel like the type of thing that could be overturned by a court by the time we publish this. But in the list of countries, there was one that caught my eye and other people's eye. That was Togo, the place of birth of one Kevin Denke, the country of which he represents internationally. We're on a little bit of a break here for FC Cincinnati. There are international matches coming up. Chief, should we be keeping an eye on this one and maybe where Kevin Denke spends his free time? Yeah.
Not so much where Kevin Denke spends his free time.
I'm just thinking if he visits home, but yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're very, very, very good people in the league and with FC Cincinnati that keep track of this sort of thing. I'm not worried about Kevin Denke. What I am worried about is, the human cost of, Kevin Denke's family not being able to come over here and visit him to watch a match if he wants to fly them over here, or him, wanting to return and spend a holiday with his family. We saw what happened with Teenage Hadabi when he had his situation over in Zimbabwe. Yeah. We the three of us have talked and we've tried to, we joke and we'll occasionally throw a political joke in here every so often. We try to stay away from capital P politics on this show.
Yeah.
But look, when it comes to travel to foreign countries and people being allowed to travel in, and we're not talking about, this is not immigration. This is just people traveling. This is people coming to this country for any number of reasons, from wanting to do an away day like we just did to New York City. And that's going to become a big issue here in a couple of weeks when they're expecting fans from around the world to come to the Club World Cup. This country is hosting the big capital W, capital C World Cup next summer. It's hosting the Olympics next summer. And you should be paying attention to this, because you look at the list of countries, and it's part of the joy of soccer is that if you would have looked at that list of countries 11 years ago or 10 years ago, most of us would say, I don't know anyone from those places. It's out of sight, out of mind. I've heard of most of them, but it doesn't. Well, now you know some people from those countries, and you wear a jersey with one of the people from those countries when you go to FC Cincinnati games, if you bought a Kevin Denke jersey. And you look at the other nations on there are players around the league that hail from these countries. And these are real people. These are real places, and there are real consequences to this happening. And I encourage everyone to not just glaze past this story.
Yeah.
And to think about the players that are involved in this league that you watch, that you enjoy, that offer this distraction from the world for you for 90 minutes at a time, that their countries are under attack to a certain extent in the court of public opinion and with the foreign policy of this country. And that just sucks. It really, really sucks. And I hope it doesn't impact Kevin. I hope it doesn't impact his family. I hope it doesn't stop his family from being able to, if they want to come to a game at TQL Stadium. Because if you found out at the game, the next home game you go to, that Kevin Denke's family was going to be at that game, everyone in the Bailey would want to know about it. They would want to bring them down. They'd want to have them banging on the drums. They would want to welcome them into the stadium. And if that's how you feel about Kevin Denke's family, then you should probably feel that way about a lot of other people's families that are impacted by this.
Yeah. I will say this was flagged to us in the Discord as possibly impacting Kevin Denke. I'd be remiss to not mention that another country mentioned in here is Sierra Leone, which is the birthplace of Kai Kamara, who has also represented them internationally as well. So similar concerns as well.
Another country with heightened restrictions is Venezuela, which is the home of not just former player Junior Moreno, but assistant coach Ricardo Paez. There have been many members or several members of Cincinnati Reds who were from Venezuela. So yeah, I mean, if you think that Kevin Denke deserves to keep, playing for FC Cincinnati,
right?
I do think you should think about why shouldn't somebody else from one of these countries get to, if they're already here, if they're, unobjectionable in some other way, why shouldn't they be able to continue, plying their trade and contributing value in the way that they can. I think this is, it's part of a trend. We talked about it with the Nashville thing.
Yeah.
Chief, you brought up, the World Cup and the Olympics and all that. I don't know. I don't really know what the smart thing to say is, other than I think there needs to be more care taken in how we're treating people.
Yeah. No, absolutely echo all of those sentiments. And I will say too, somewhere out there is footage of me speaking at City Hall in favor of building the stadium in downtown Cincinnati. And apart from it, I'm sure being super embarrassing is, I remember my comment said that it is a way that Major League Soccer and more importantly, the sport of soccer is a way to connect Cincinnati and our community to a global community, to a global world, to a shared culture, to putting Cincinnati on the map in an international sense so that folks in Sierra Leone and Togo have a reason to care about the city of Cincinnati that frankly probably doesn't exist without star players playing for a soccer team here. And I think that that is a beautiful, wonderful thing that the sport of soccer and that Major League Soccer and FC Cincinnati specifically has given us as a city, as a community, as a shared culture here. And I hate seeing things restrict that and put walls around that and put gates up in front of other people being able to participate in that. I think it's literally what makes it the beautiful game, is that it is so widely shared. So
no, it's my father-in-law and my mother-in-law were over in Europe with a bunch of other couples, and they had a cab driver. They were chatting with the cab driver, because that's what Americans do. We chat with people, and it makes other people in Europe very uncomfortable. Two things you know about Cincinnati: FC Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that there are people out there in the world, in Togo, who may have Kevin Denke's jersey and they're wearing an FC Cincinnati jersey in a part of the world I've never been to, that I might have nothing in common with other than the fact that, hey, we both think this guy's kind of cool. And look, I'm a moron. I'm not going to change anyone's opinion on any of this stuff. I'm not going to change your politics. I'm not going to change your opinion. All I think I'm asking is, if everybody just, when you read a story like this, just stop and ask yourself why. And is this good for us? Is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do for people that I may care about, or who may care about people that I like? Just, if you just stop for a minute and ask yourself, instead of just blindly supporting or hating everything that you see based on one factor or the other. If you just stop and just ask yourself, why are we doing this? Maybe you come up with a good answer, and maybe you don't change your opinion on it, but at least you've started the conversation internally about asking the right questions, hopefully, about what it is we're seeing and what it is we're doing as a country.
Yeah. No, very well said. So unfortunately, that's all we got for FC Cincinnati news. Stay tuned. I guess we'll see how this shakes out. Who knows? Maybe none of this stuff comes to pass, right? That has also been a theme with a lot of this stuff. So let's head on over to part 2, where we will, I think, finally finish the May questions from the Patreon, and then following forward, we could answer June questions. So let's turn in our homework late, shall we? All right, we are back with part 2, where we will finally get to the May questions. People have been dying to have their questions answered. I'm sure not. But we owe it to them. So if you would like to support the show financially, monetarily, emotionally, and artistically, you can go to patreon.com, search for The Post Cincy. There's also a link in the show notes where you can support us. We have one tier. It is the tip jar. You can leave us a $2 a month tip. That's basically all we are asking for. With that, you keep the show going, and you also get to ask a question on the Patreon, which we answer eventually on the show. There are some other side benefits, like your name is in highlighter pink on the Discord. Let me know if that's not working for you. You also get access to the super secret channel on the Discord, and a quick look. It would appear that the last message was sent 3 months ago in that channel. So, you could be missing out on something or not. You won't know unless you subscribe. Although I will say the last thing that was posted was a giveaway. They can't all be that good, but it was a thing that happened. Anyway, on to the questions. We have questions to answer. Ryan Vossler asks, I think, a very important question right now. Is dining outside at a restaurant overrated? Yes or no?
No, I don't find it to be overrated. I enjoy the experience tremendously, but I will say that it isn't overrated. Every restaurant does not need to have an outdoor dining space though. So I think that dining outside at a restaurant, if the setup is done in such a way that it is not like, because like during COVID, like every restaurant suddenly had to have an outdoor space and not all of them were great. I remember, because we were so eager to do anything, I went and I ate at Revolution in Pleasant Ridge and their outdoor space was on about a 20-degree slope. Where like that's not a great outdoor dining experience. Or like, in New York, they have we just going to build like a wooden box to put tables in, and we're not going to take any care whatsoever about making sure that there's enough room for people to, actually be able to hold a knife and fork while they're eating. Right. So no, I think in general, if you go to a place that has a good outdoor dining setup, outdoor dining is fantastic. But I don't think that every place needs to be that way at the same time.
And don't force it. Like, outdoor dining can't be beat if conditions are appropriate.
Yes.
But like, I have been in situations where like you get the idea like, oh, it'd be great. Like, let's go eat outside. Or you go to a restaurant, like they're full inside and they have space outside. And you're like, oh, fine. Yeah. We'll sit outside. And it just wasn't the right conditions for outdoor dining. Yeah. Like that's a bit of a bummer. But like, I had dinner outside Sunday. It was incredible.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's overrated. I guess it depends how you rate it, but I don't think it's overrated.
I think it's rated. It's properly rated.
Yeah.
I think in general, I prefer a patio to completely open air, but rooftop is always better than almost any other option, if that makes sense.
You've got to go, if you're going to like start a business, you've got to go into it knowing if you're going to offer outdoor dining or not. Like you can't just shoehorn it into an experience that otherwise doesn't make sense. Like you can't turn your restaurant into Paris if it wasn't set up to be Paris.
Right. Yeah. Also, like the street you're on has to make sense. Like if cars go by fast, that just is like never a great experience. So yeah, there's certainly some things to play around with there. John asks, oh God, this is a very self-indulgent question here. John asks, so sorry, John, for doing that to your question before I even ask it.
Great use your $2 there.
Yeah. Screw you, John. John asks, so I've really enjoyed the world's game, but it's easy to think something is huge when it's just that you're in your own personal echo chamber. So how are the analytics on the show? Is it breaking out of the postcast crowd and getting a wider audience draw? Love the intro, by the way. Hey, John, thanks.
The answer to your questions are bad, no, and no.
Bad? Probably and no. So this is kind of the weird thing with the World's Gam. So the World's Gam is if the postcast has 12 listeners, the World's Gam does not have 12 listeners. So.
Significantly fewer than 12.
Less than 12. However, I am routinely surprised at the feedback we get on the show from not Cincinnati circles. It has been, there's been more than you would think, which is nice. But again, it's not a large audience, but it is certainly starting to sneak its way out there, which I'll take. That's good. That's positive.
Right. I mean, it wasn't going to sneak out right away. We're at least 2 episodes away before I call to can it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're not exactly marketing it or doing anything with it. So it's not like we took like an ad campaign out or we're taking any kind of aggressive steps to encourage people to watch to
Nor
listen.
Do we know how to do that.
No, that's the other thing I was going to add on to that.
There's not a good way to do it.
How the hell do you promote a podcast? I have no idea. I don't know why people listen to this.
So that's why every time you hear about a new podcast that like seems to have come out of nowhere, and it's hosted by somebody you've never heard of, and it's suddenly very famous, the first thought is, oh, that's the CIA.
Yeah.
Because like how else do you like I remember there's this thing, God, I even forget what it's called, but there's like this YouTube show that keeps getting promoted to me that I've not watched a minute of.
Yes.
And it's got like every episode seems to have like a very well-known podcaster, internet celebrity type person on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what is this?
Why?
Yes.
What is this?
No,
This is the CIA.
It's either CIA or one of the people hosting it, their dad is CEO of like CrowdStrike,
right,
or something like that. Where it's like everybody owes this guy a favor.
Or there's like a producer behind it who's like a very powerful agent or something.
Right. It's like the Men in Blazer guy. Like,
yeah. Well, it's like, yes, if you own Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in Jeopardy
and Wife Swap,
and if one of you owns those things and the other one is the son-in-law
billionaire family
of a billionaire, yeah, you might get some purchase.
Yeah,
like you're like, oh, why is the Attorney General going on this soccer podcast?
Yeah, after having arrested all these executives in Europe.
Maybe it's because one of them has a billionaire father-in-law who runs a security company that contracts with the U.S. government.
So this does remind me of two stories. The first one is, Grayson, if you've not seen this, I will share this in the Discord with everybody. Really great story about how in the early 2000s, the CIA was running a Star Wars fan site.
I
saw that.
this.
Yeah, good. Because they would upload.
I'd never heard of that website, so I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it was a particularly popular website. It was just funny that that's how they chose to communicate.
I clicked on the story just to make sure it wasn't theforce.net, and I was like, oh my god.
I once heard a story. Sorry, this is a Star Wars story. I once heard a story from a guy who like was a intellectual property lawyer for Lucasfilm. And somebody had created the website. It might have been StarWars.com.
Oh, nice.
Like some super fan had just gotten StarWars.com. And he negotiated like a settlement where they would transfer that website to Lucasfilm in exchange for like tickets to the premiere of, I assume based on the timing, like Revenge of the Sith.
Oh no.
And a like authentic Chewbacca costume.
Hell yeah.
Man,
that's a dude's rock story.
You know what? That guy kicks ass. Yeah, he was like, I'm not trying to get rich on this. I just want the things that are going to make me happy.
Yeah.
And he's like got clarity of mind to say the things that are going to make me happy are tickets to the Revenge of the Sith premiere and a Chewbacca costume.
Could have negotiated 1% royalty on everything StarWars.com makes.
No, because then you would be the loser that's making money off that. And instead,
don't be that way.
I've got this cool Chewbacca costume and a great story about how I sold StarWars.com to George Lucas.
You know what else would buy a Chewbacca costume?
$1 million.
Royalty fees on StarWars.com. I will say,
you got the website for love of the game. Give it away for love of the game.
What does concern me, though, Grayson, and I don't know if that's what happened in this case. I am very much not a fan of intellectual property law being used to take domain names from people squatting on them to give them to the brand. So like if you sue the owner of StarWars.com because you own the trademark or whatever for Star Wars, I think that's bullshit. Like just because I own a piece of property that looks like your property doesn't mean you own my property.
Yeah, I mean, I'm behind that idea. Yeah. I don't think that that's how it works.
Okay.
Like, good. I think that you can force people to give you websites.
Right. No, I think that is what happens. I just don't like it.
I'm with you on that.
In spirit. Yeah.
I just think in principle, if you're just like, if you have StarWars.com, just because you like love Star Wars so much and like you noticed nobody had it.
Yeah.
And you got it and you did it just to share your love with Star Wars for the world.
Yes.
Tickets to the premiere and a Chewbacca costume feel like the right outcome to me.
Yeah. So tickets to every future Star Wars movie, huh? Let's
Sure,
get a little
yeah.
greedy. Let's get a little greedy.
I mean, the real ask is I want to be in the background as a Jedi.
Yeah. No, that's
Let me be
like,
a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then
Now
I get
we're
my own
talking.
action figure and then I can get the royalties on that then.
Boom.
That's all a long way of saying we have no idea how to promote the world's game, and StarWars.com has already been purchased, so I'm fresh out of ideas.
Yeah, correct. Oh, thank you. The second story was I did turn on dynamic ad placement in the world's game. And I know everybody is dying to hear this. As of recording today, it has earned us, are you ready for this? 11 cents.
Hell yeah.
Boom.
Boom.
And they say it doesn't pay. It literally pays. Literally professional podcasters.
See, I don't want to confront the hard reality. What if the show sucks? And nobody's listening to it because it sucks?
If it sucks, there's nothing we can do about it.
That's
Perish
true.
the
There's no way we can improve the quality.
I will say this.
It's as good as it can be.
I like that.
That is probably true. If it sucks, which I'm saying there's a decent possibility of that being the case, I will say it has decent company along with every other MLS podcast. So we have not lowered any bars, I will say. So I will take it.
I guess we need, what I need to do is I need to go out and I need to find an MLS podcast that is objectively worse than ours, and then I'll feel better.
We're not going to name that.
No, but I just need to know that it
There's
exists.
too many to name.
Oh, it exists. I'm not going to name it.
I'm not certain it does.
This is not a shot at Soccer Wise. This is a shot at literally every other one. Anyway, Steve Halderman asks a question related a bit to the conversation we had in part one. Over under years before Denke is playing for an EPL team.
I don't know that he goes to the EPL.
I'm going over.
Yeah, I'm going over
whatever
too.
it is. Yeah,
yeah,
whatever it is, I'm going over.
Yeah,
so let's say 2.5 years. In 2.5 years, is he playing for an EPL team, or would it be?
It's
longer?
It's under or never.
That's actually
in my opinion. In my opinion, it's under or never.
He's got Serie A energy.
Yeah, I think he can. I think he'll play in a top 5 league.
Yeah,
I think he could play in any of the leagues, to be clear. It's just a matter of does he
yes.
fit the profile that these teams are looking for?
I think quality-wise, he could play for a number of EPL teams tomorrow.
Yeah.
Market-wise, what kinds of strikers are EPL teams buying? I don't know that they're in the market for like 20, like, you know, by the time he's on the market, you know, 25, 26-year-old plus strikers out of MLS, you know, and maybe some teams should be in that market.
Yeah.
Because you get a playable player right away. But in the EPL, it just doesn't seem to be where their market is. I think he could play in any league in the world, but I think that Syria. I agree with Chief. Like Serie A, Ligue 1,
Bundesliga.
I don't see him I don't see him as a Bundesliga player.
I think he'll play in Serie A or Ligue 1.
Ligue 1, yeah. Wrexham.
What is funny though is it's not unlike the issue that MLS has. I don't know if it's an issue, an instinct where MLS teams would probably prefer to grab an MLS player, maybe a Liga MX player, because they know that those skills will translate and they sort of trust their scouting there. It's similar in the Premier League where they seem to only want to truly recruit from the other big 5 leagues and maybe on the periphery of Europe, but you don't see a lot of guys going like from Japan to the Premier League, or from
like 19 they do it.
Yeah, right. That's fair. Yeah, when they're doing it there, you're not going to take the Golden Boot winner in South Korea and put them on a Champions League squad. There's a couple of steps that have to happen before then, and that person, like you said, has to be under the age of like 21.
Yeah. And they age out before that happens.
Now, the one advantage Denke does have is a European Golden Boot at a somewhat respectable league. So that is certainly a data point in his favor to move into the Premier League.
I don't think it's necessarily Premier League profile. Like, I feel like Premier League signs like young, promising players.
Yeah.
And they sign like very established in another top 5 league.
Yes.
Or like a Champions League team in another European country player.
And you got to think of it too. If you are, let's say you're Everton, right? Like a mid-table Premier League team, what would it take to get Denke from FC Cincinnati? $20 to $25 million. You'd probably be pissed if you're an Everton fan, if your team just spent $25 million on an MLS striker. You'd rather see them go poach somebody from Spain or Italy or something.
I mean, like, we know Nottingham Forest was interested in Denke. They weren't going up to 14, I think, even.
And that's the other thing. If he was going to go, he would have gone. That's the only reason why we got him, is that they all said no. Not that they whiffed on him, not that they were overspent on him. They all said no. So there you go.
I think he's a guy. And I think, playing in Serie A, Liga 1, like, you've made it. Like, that's making it, I think, in world soccer. And I think he'll get there. I just don't think we'll ever see him on a Premier League team. And I don't think it's really a reflection of him as a player. I think it's a reflection of like just market forces and like what those teams spend money on.
Yeah. No, completely agree. Okay. There's more questions here than I thought. Lightning round. Here we go. DeDrizzle asks, Chief, do you feel bad for trashing their kick around bonding exercise yet? You did speak ill of the transfer game one time.
No.
Hell yeah. Stand on your business.
I don't.
Let's go.
Skyline Slushy asks, what do we have to do to have Chief pull the sword before the Dallas game? Ultimate Lucha revenge.
You absolutely don't want that under any circumstances.
It's true. Chief,
although,
if you
the last time I was on the field with Lucha, things worked out pretty well.
I think that's what they were referring to. I will say, though, if anybody has watched Away Days, you will know that if Chief pulls the sword will not look very impressive or intimidating. So,
no, not at
all. To be clear, I am 6'1", and in most situations in my life, I am seen as average to tall. That is not the case in that video.
Tough scenes.
Mark Schweizhaus. Oh, Schweich.
Come on. You can't butcher this one.
Schwei says.
Schwei.
The problem is I know how to pronounce it, and I looked at the name as I tried to pronounce it, and my mind said, no, that is not how that goes.
What is Mark Schweikowski asking?
Mark Schweikowski asks, in your life, what has been your favorite away day, Ben? Can be across any sport, league, amateur, professional, etc.
Away day what?
What is your favorite away day, Ben? You've gone away from your home stadium to watch a game. He doesn't care the context. Just what was your favorite away day?
AFC Championship game, Kansas City.
Hell yeah.
Bengals come back to make the Super Bowl. Unreal. Absolutely unreal experience.
In the last 35, 40 years? No. Bengals history. That is probably the best away day. All the Super Bowl runs previous to that, they were never the away team. So
I have rotten luck when I go to like actually watch my team play places. I mean, I guess I watched the Buccaneers play here in Cincinnati and they won. So I guess that's an away days for them, but like a home game for me.
I like that. My favorite away day was, I think I've mentioned this before. I drove to Pittsburgh with my dad and girlfriend at the time to Pittsburgh to watch the University of Cincinnati play Pitt in the de facto Big East title game. This is the season that Brian Kelly last season there, the Pike to Ben's incredible finale victory capped off an undefeated season. Was pretty dope. I will say honorable mention because I am not a fan of either of these teams. I was at a company event when I worked at a museum at the Field Museum in Chicago. It's supposed to be a networking event. It was super boring. There was nothing going on. I saw everything in the museum I wanted to see. It was later in the evening, and I had realized that Soldier Field is like literally across the street from the Field Museum, and the aforementioned on the other podcast, the International Champions Cup match between Man City and Dortmund was going on. I bought a ticket and left the event and walked across the street and watched that game next to a couple of guys from Germany and watched Christian Pulisic play for the first time for me. So that was exciting. Sean Pace asks, in light of the Toronto Maple Leafs losing yet again, trigger warning for the Canadians there.
Sorry, Carter.
Sorry, Carter. Do you think that there is any merit that certain cities or fan bases, quote, care too much, putting pressure on teams to win, causing them to collapse? Or is this all just an excuse for incompetent ownership, management, players? Sean, the counter argument to everything you're saying is Real Madrid, which cannot have more pressure, cannot have higher standards, and yet they consistently live up to it. So it's possible.
All fans care too much, us included.
Preach.
That's absolutely accurate.
You can't, I'm not going to apologize for it. Definitely not going to change it. But yes, all fans care too much.
Yes. I think in the Canadian context, that's absolutely true. I think in Toronto specifically, there are so many Canadian-born players that grow up in the Toronto area as Leafs fans that it puts inordinate amounts of pressure on the Toronto Maple Leafs specifically. The only other fan base I would say that's close to that is Notre Dame, where I think that their fan base has such high expectations that I do think they crumble sometimes under the weight of the expectations.
But there are certainly... I mean, there are places where that has lasted for a long time, although even the best teams go through ups and downs. I guess we'll see what happens with Alabama, for example, in college football. We'll see if they can maintain that. Duke does seem to have righted a little bit there, but North Carolina seems to be right there with them. Okay. Justin Keller asks, did the Chief lose a bet where the punishment is he has to say X the Everything app, it's all happening on X at least once every episode? Did you lose a bet, Chief?
I didn't, but it is the Everything app and everything. It's all happening on X. I don't make the rules on that.
It is my favorite running bit on the show. I laugh every time. Matt Reeder asks, all right, something topical. How do we as a fan base greet Guido Gonzalez and or Latte Loth the next time they visit TQL? Full Frankie treatment? Something else?
I think Frankie treatment's appropriate for both.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worse for Guido. I don't know what the answer is, but there has to be something more.
Yeah. I mean,
does the answer involve fireworks?
Maybe a pizza delivery to the dressing room.
Lord help Guido Gonzalez if the fans figure out what hotel he is staying at before the game. Not because that they will come do him harm, but there will be a absurd number of pizza deliveries made to that hotel.
I do think that Latte Loth, and honestly, like Atlanta fans in general, because they have not let it go.
Yeah.
Like your guy did a dirty hit and sent our player to the hospital.
And you're telling us to get over it.
And you're telling us to get over it. And not just telling us to get over it. Multiple games later.
Yeah.
Are showing up in our mentions.
And like blaming.
To, like, talk to us.
Yeah.
And like, don't. So like Atlanta is
they're on notice.
They're on notice. Yeah.
They're gonna sneak their way up rivalry
Atlanta
ranking.
is above. They're above Nashville currently.
Yeah, well, everyone is. But
Well, they were already above Nashville, but they're more above Nashville.
Yeah. They
The gap
bear
is
an honorable
widening.
mention right now in the rivalry list. Moomba asks, this is our penultimate question. Have you...
That means most ultimate.
That means second to the ultimate, doesn't it?
No, it means pan ultimate. It means like across all the ultimate.
Is it penultimate?
It's penultimate. I'm just making a joke, guys.
How dare you?
Right. On our penultimate question,
Jesus
no less.
Christ.
Can we not make a joke
for our... I'm making a joke for our literate listener.
Our bread ultimate.
Can we not make a pan joke during Pride Month, please? Okay. Moomba asks, have you heard of Not Your Average Paint and Sip? It's a fabulous art class run by local FCC Artist of the Month, James Reynolds, as featured in the TQL halftime video.
Wait, who submitted this question?
Somebody named Moomba, but now I'm suspecting James Reynolds.
I'm thinking it's artist James Reynolds.
Hey, that's fine. Just can we send him an invoice now for the free ad?
Well, the ad was $2.
The answer is Moomba. Never heard of it.
Never. Now I have.
Now I have.
No.
Read that again, Kevin.
I've already forgotten it. I'm sorry, I've already deleted the question.
That's a $2 plug right there.
Yeah. Moomba asks, have you heard of Not Your Average Paint and Sip? ? It's a fabulous art class run by local FCC Artist of the Month, James Reynolds, as featured in TQL halftime video.
And just
is the question mark part of the name?
It might be.
Yeah. Now just think you heard Kevin read that in his dulcet tones. You too could hear your business read in that regard if you choose to sponsor either the Postcast or the World's Gam.
I will say that, Kevin, we should be on the lookout for snuck in ads.
No, if somebody pays us $2 a month for an ad
that gets read in one episode at the part everyone is skipping over.
No. Good point. Good point, Grayson. I have undercut ourselves here. Although the other podcast made 11 cents, so
$2. That's like 20 times.
Yeah, maybe we should be selling some $2 ads over there. And finally. Now, this is the penultimate question. Tim Sears asks, why is FC Cincinnati culture better than Columbus Crew culture? And he has some options. He says ownership, stadium, players, color scheme, themes, city, tradition, intangible vibes, which he says are opposite tangible vibes, which I appreciate the clarification. Visible auras and all.
Kevin, take the lead on this one.
I think the stadium location and construction is inarguably better in Cincinnati. It does not have open corners. It is located next to an exciting downtown. For anybody who has gone to lower.com stadium, sure, it's fine for a soccer stadium. It's not near anything, and the stadium district that does exist there that gets lots of praise doesn't seem to know when the Columbus Crew is playing, and so everything feels dead and nothing is open. The players, sure, they have decent players, but as good as their players may be, they're not as good as FC Cincinnati is this year on the table, so that seems like a problem for them. They stole their colors from Pittsburgh. That's got to be a mark against them. They went outside of state lines to get their colors. Let's be honest, it should have been scarlet and gray. The city, Columbus is a suburb that got out of hand. I'm sorry. It's not a real capital. It was chosen geographically, and I think surreptitiously. Xenia, Ohio was
we're
once...
We're Chillicothe truthers on this podcast.
Chillicothe and Xenia, Ohio. Look it up. Xenia, Ohio, briefly capital of Ohio. The traditions, I mean, what are their traditions? Clap, 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 Columbus.
Fools rush in.
The Fools rush in is nice. I'll admit it. Like that's nice.
Yeah. Isn't it? Is it called Fools Rush In?
I think that's the name of the song.
I can't help. It's one of those songs where it's
in love with
yeah,
crew,
it's like
whatever.
The name really isn't Teenage Wasteland. It's Bob O'Reilly. I think it's one of those situations.
It doesn't.
Yes,
it doesn't work. I can't help. I just can't help falling in love with crew.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. It rhymes.
Well done.
Fits the syllable scheme,
but it doesn't work.
Yeah,
like nobody says like I love crew. That's like saying I love lamp.
right.
Which we know is a San Diego thing, which makes it disgusting.
Yes. God, gross by having two rivals team up. Intangible vibes. Let me tell you about an intangible vibe crime that Columbus Crew has committed. They will tell you that the name comes from the blue collar construction crews that became their eventual logo. However, that is not where the name came from. The name existed first before the logo. The name of the team comes from Christopher Columbus and his crew that traveled the Americas. Now, if you know anything about history,
everything turned out fine when that happened, right?
Murdered people, all sorts of horrific things. So if you want to name your team after racist, genocidal slavers, it's your right as Americans. I will just disagree with the decision.
I think it's funny that the Cleveland Guardians and Washington Commanders had to change their name, but the Columbus Crew didn't have to change their name.
The logo came second. You cannot say that's where the name came from. The name existed before the logo.
Like the name of the city shouldn't. It's canceled.
Right. Come on.
Also, you can't talk to a Crew fan online.
Yeah.
Like they are too precious.
They come from a internet era. It is funny. Like there's a obviously like their vocal
this is
base.
true for most MLS fan bases, which is why I don't engage.
Yes.
MLS 1.0 fans.
Yeah.
They come from an era where the perspective is the league could die at any second. We should all protect and love one another. That it's more important to have good effort and fun times out there than there is like an overall need or desire to win. And with that is then also like this weird bitter entitlement that like they didn't get all their winning in before like the new kids showed up. It's a very weird dynamic. They also like from an older era of like how to converse online, and that has infected the way that their younger generations then interact online as well. It's bad all around. It's not good.
Yeah. Why is Cincinnati better? Cincinnati is an objectively better city. The ownership group never once attempted to turn tail and relocate to a different city. There was never a need to invoke a random portion of the Ohio Revised Code in order to keep the team.
That the current ownership is now trying to invalidate.
Invalidate again. Yeah.
Whoops.
Stadium location better. I would say more stable in the front office, which is a good thing. The other thing too is that to put this in a little bit of perspective, all of the Crew's hardcore fans got old. Mm-hmm. And then they didn't do any kind of a job of making sure that there was a next generation of Crew fans. So, make sure you're bringing your kids and your friends that are younger than you to the games.
Yes.
I'll say this. I like the German Village.
Sure. There are certainly parts of Columbus I have enjoyed. We shot in away days there.
Clintonville is a neat little area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Away Day episode 1 still available. Plenty of you haven't watched.
We had a lovely time touring the state capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah, learned a lot about how Columbus was founded as a prison.
Yeah, and literally.
In many ways, it still is.
Capitol was built by, we'll say,
it's full of
highly
criminals.
compelled labor.
Everywhere around the state, we send our criminals up there.
On that note, the real reason why is just because today and forever, fuck Columbus.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. Also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.